Welcome back to the Cheap Heat Productions podcast. Okay, welcome back to the show, and I have a familiar face, a guest I had on when I was recording on Skype on my phone back in the day, but we've kind of upgraded a little bit now. Mr. Garrett Zima, how are you, man?
I'm great. How are you doing?
Doing good.
That's good.
Yeah.
Congratulations on your baby.
Yeah, we were supposed to film this, but then the baby was born within like an hour or two of us filming back in
Yeah.
October because we were going to kind of talk about what you had coming up with the Voyage, the Haunted Voyage, which we're going to start off with anyway.
Mm.
And what I want to know is who came up with the idea, how long has it been running, and exactly for the viewers, what is it?
Well, so when I was younger, probably 10, there was a haunted camp actually at this place. It was called Camp 4-H Camp Tabawingo. And it was a lot of volunteers, different 4-H clubs. If you're not familiar with 4-H, it's basically like a lot of agriculture they do. So all these different clubs with cattle and all that stuff, and they would put on this haunted woods every year, and it was literally right behind my house growing up. I lived out in the country,
Mhm.
and so I could literally walk in my backyard, and if I went far enough, I would be in the haunted woods. And it always I think it kind of inspired me to kind of get into what I'm in, and you know, go ahead maybe, man, I think 15 plus years later, they stopped doing the haunted camp there for whatever reason. I think maybe the volunteers, the problem is nowadays it's hard to get volunteers like you used to back in the day. But anyway, they stopped doing the haunted trail for whatever reason. And I reached out to them and said, hey, would you guys be interested in doing a haunted camp again? Because they do a haunted or not that I'm sorry, they do a summer camp, like a real
Yeah.
summer camp out there for kids and stuff. And so it's like a learning activities and all that stuff. And it makes them good money, and they do well, and they have fundraisers and stuff. But definitely, they needed something more, which I was able to provide, which is this just haunted voyage. So then I made up the name. I was at the time I was working at a chemical plant, and I just was writing down on scratch piece of paper, and just kind of trying to figure out a name that would be like not that wasn't used already, that would
Yeah.
be easy to remember, yada yada yada. And Haunted Voyage was just, it was an available domain, and it was easy to remember, and it worked out. So I got the website for that, and then we started building. I think we started the haunted house with a budget of $25,000, which is super low. I
Mhm.
At the time I owned a lot of movie memorabilia, and so unfortunately I had to sell off a lot of movie memorabilia to get the 25 grand that I needed to do the first year. And it did well, and I just kept saying, let's just keep going. It's kind of, the haunt stuff is more fun to me than it is like, oh, we got to make profit,
Yeah.
which it does do well. It's just, I feel like when you're in a situation where you don't care, it's just fun. And whatever, there's sets where I'm building things, and I'm like, I just want to add this much more detail to it because it would look cooler. Not that it, on a budget standpoint, is it going to
Yeah.
work? but it'll look cooler. So it's nice to have those types of freedoms. But yeah, the first year was very limited. We built a couple lean tunes. Me and my dad built some stuff out there, and it looked fine. And we had these facades that were more, I wouldn't say detailed by layering wood, but spray painted. We did some spray paint techniques where it made the cabins look like they had dimension, which they didn't. They were like flat.
Okay.
And it worked. We just dim lit it, and it's sold. People were sold. And then years later, when I was able to get more money for the haunt, I ended up doing crazy detail out there. So we did, I redid a ton of stuff out there where we built 4 fake cabins out there. So they're facades, but behind them are these lean-to sheds, which are the show buildings, we call them. And so there's like all these different LED lights and effects and pneumatic props and stuff like that. And but it's a lot of work. It's the hardest part is the building process and the tear down. So that's what some people sometimes don't realize, because it does run as a summer camp. So then we have to tear everything down at the end of the year. So everything kind of has to be mobile. So I've gotten clever with making different things. I've posted some videos on my Instagram where I was making these Byrd boxes that had speakers inside them, and they would have a little wire out, and it was these little clever ways of like screwing things up temporarily, and then having it work during the show, and then having to take it down, and it was all contained, so it would stay away from the elements, and then it was easier to put away because it's just a box, Byrd box. So
how hands-on are you? Because I know like that you're obviously really good at creating stuff from the work we've seen on Trick or Treat Studios and stuff like that. But in terms of props, are you building nearly 90% of the stuff there, or what?
Well, when I first started Haunted Voyage, and I mean, I've done other haunted shows before, and we used to go to these. Well, I still go to these trade shows. There's a trade show in St. Louis where all the haunted house guys buy all their stuff. We don't go to Walmart, and I mean, sometimes I go to Walmart, but but there's these trade shows where people buy, there's artists that make stuff for haunted houses, and I got to a point where, I'm like, man, this stuff is so expensive. I could just be building it. And so a lot of stuff now that's at Haunted Voyage is built by me. There are some other stuff that I pick up every once in a while at the trade shows and put it in, because it's like, God, I could have never thought of that. So you just have to buy it, So they're like the raccoons. I built a bunch of.
I've seen them. Yeah, they were cool.
Yeah, I think I built 25 or 30 of those. And then we built the mother head, which I built like in 2 days. It was like total last minute. We were getting close to opening, and I'm like, I'm looking at all the sheets, and I'm like, man, I got this raccoon head I have to build. So I kind of made it like you would, not paper mache, but it's kind of like how you would design a mascot's head. So it kind of looks like, Nightmare at Freddy's or whatever kind of look. But in the future, I plan to do a full sculpture of that head and then make molds, because I really love the whole. It's a big head. It's on a like a chain or a wire, and the head's here. And basically, you have an actor, a puppeteer, making the head force towards the audience. Because the nice thing about that is, if you do it fully animatronic, you risk like the animatronic hitting the customer. And when you have pneumatics and all that stuff, or motors, it could hurt somebody. Where if you have, maybe like a puppeteer having it lunge out and getting really close, but obviously the puppeteer sees how close they are.
Yeah,
so
they're in control.
Yeah. So, and then we had like a jaw motion. I had this big like metal rod that would come out for the puppeteer, and they would just pull, and it would make the mouth move. And it was all polyurethane rubber. And so it was really safe. So you could actually nudge people, and it wouldn't like hurt nobody. So that was a fun project, but I wish it would have been more detailed. I mean, again, you dim the lights down just enough where it sells it. So it worked really well, and that was a good scare at the end. We had like a big speaker behind it, which roared and made it look cool.
Yeah. Obviously last year with the pandemic and everything, you didn't get to run. So did you have more of an appetite then this year by having that year out? I know you said we talked off camera beforehand, you got to actually go and visit some last year. But
Yeah,
did you really miss doing it last year?
it was weird because I really was pushing to be open, but the property, I don't own the property. It's owned by a university, or at the time it was owned by a university. Now it's transitioning to something else. But we were limited because of what restrictions they had. Because in Wisconsin, it's very odd. Like, it's a big state. We're kind of here. The university was kind of down here, so they were kind of following more guidelines that were more south of Wisconsin, where it's a
Hmm.
big city compared to like out in the country, this summer camp. So it just kind of, I don't know, it just we had to follow restrictions that were, in a different place, and it was just complicated. Then we just decided that it wasn't going to work with the restrictions. I think they were telling us at one point, you just have one customer go through at a time, and I'm just like, no,
No,
because
like I wouldn't have a problem going through a haunted house by myself or people that are into horror, but like when people come as a group, they don't want to be separated either. It was never going to work.
right, that's like always a big problem because when we are running normally, there's like groups of 10 or 15 that show up and they all want to go together, and I'm like,
Yeah. Hmm.
play them, but the show won't be as good because you'll miss, everything's timed.
Yeah.
There's all these pneumatic. I like puppets, so I think that's what fascinates me about Chucky and all that.
Yeah.
And I have everything timed on either step mats or body sensitive sensors. And if you got all these huge groups in, it doesn't work.
Yeah,
But
because over here, Garrett, sorry to interrupt
no,
you. It's just there's a thing called the Nightmare Realm, which I go to every year. So it's
yeah,
basically a haunted house, but it's more actor based with people scaring you and everything. And I was there this year, but they didn't get to run last year. So this year was crazy busy.
yeah,
And the problem was there was too many people there. So the people in front of us were kind of slower, and then we catch up with them and kind of miss the scare and miss the jump. So I
yeah.
know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, we definitely were busier this year, and I don't. It's tough because I hired a marketing agency this year for the haunt, and I was like, thinking, was it effective because of the marketing agency, or was it effective because people just wanted to go out? We have a
Yeah.
lot of local. We're part of the town that we're in, and that group, that those people really wanted to see the haunt. They were disappointed that we weren't open last year. So you know definitely there was, like, I think there was moments that were like on Saturdays where there was so many people showing up where I'm like, I don't even think we're built to hold this many
Yeah.
customers. So it was super complicated, but we got everyone through. We ended up, my staff kind of regrouped that weekend where we got slammed, and we figured out a plan, like, how are we gonna still give them the quality of entertainment that they paid for, and still, like, but get them through in a way that they're moving. And so we came up with the system where it was, the main actor, like the beginning actor, being at the ticket, or where they collect tickets and they let
Hmm.
customers out through the woods. So she was there, and then we had another waiting line. So you had your waiting line in the lodge where you're ready to go through the haunted trail, and then halfway through the haunted trail, there's another waiting line. So it's like a doctor's office.
Hmm.
So we had it like that, so that way we were moving people, giving them a good show. They weren't stuck in a spot for a long period of time. So it's definitely like a weird balance because usually people would show up right when we opened, and it would get hectic, and I'm like, oh my god,
Yeah.
trying to figure out. And we were kind of low staffed this year. I mean, it all depends because some nights we had way too many people acting, and then some nights I was putting on a mask, and the owner, I'm putting on a mask, doing some scares, just so that the show seemed even enough, or it had a good,
Balance, yeah.
multiple. Yeah, because if you go through a haunt and there's a lot of dead space, then it's not fun, or they're expecting a scare and then they kind of get let down. So you got to kind of space everyone properly. So then I was acting some nights, only a couple. It wasn't that bad, but yeah, there was some nights we were low staffed, and because some people, I think either someone, I don't know if it was someone got sick or someone just wasn't able to come that weekend, and then we, if someone's sick, we didn't want them to come, to work.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the way things are.
Yeah.
We have to touch on the television show, but firstly, I just want to talk to you as a fan about it. What did you think of it? I thought it was brilliant. I thought it went back to the roots.
I because I'm sure it was low budget. I don't know how much it was to make, but I was super impressed by the quality of the show. Like I don't know what the budget was. I don't know, but the acting seemed really good.
Yeah, the cast was good. Yeah,
Alex was in it, and I really liked his acting. Christine was in it. She was good. She was only in there for a certain amount of time. I wish there was a little more Christine. I'm sure we'll see her in season 2. I'm not sure.
I don't think she's gone.
I don't know. I know nothing. I'll be
I see when I seen the end scene with the hand in the graveyard, I thought that must be her because she was wearing a glove. But I'm only guessing.
To be honest with you, I do not know anything. I just make things when they ask. I don't know anything about scripts. It was.
I think you went on mute there.
All right,
you went on mute there. Yeah, you're back.
Yeah, someone was just trying to call me, so
okay.
That's why I cut off. But the puppets looked good. One thing that I had a part in the face of the puppet is I provided. I got a casting here. This is Child's Play 2 replica head. This is actually a base paint. It's not fleshed out yet, so it looks really satin kind of right now.
Yeah.
But I provided them with the head casting for that, and you can tell how good his face looks. They had like 3 different faces. They had the good guy, which is kind of like a modification. They modified, because I provided them with a good guy head, and I think they just modified it to have like more like of a butt lip or whatever, and whatever they ended up doing with that. But the neutral head or the transitional head, the head they used the most throughout the show was the head I provided. So I was really happy about that because it's one of those things like, it totally, like when you're seeing certain shots in the film, especially with the different lighting they use, totally looks like Child's Play 2. It has that look, and that's what Don was going for. He wanted Child's Play 2. He loves that film. I love it too. I think it's got a lot of great scenes in it. And that face, it's so easy to get it wrong, and because it's just a human sculpture in a sense, but it's a doll, has sort of doll features, so it's so easy to mess it up. And so I was really happy that they took that casting and they did some modifications to it. Like this is the eyelids they made so that he had full eyelids, so that was sculpted in from them. And then I think that was pretty much it. But then they had real teeth in him, and it looked really good. And what else did I do? I did the shoes. I made his little sneakers. I had to make a lot of those sneakers, and the shoelace.
Oh,
yes. Yeah.
For all those dolls.
I'm sorry, what?
For all those dolls in near the end.
The dolls at the end are a bunch of Trick or Treat Studios dolls. So those, in a sense, I had a part of making, but those were all made in the factory. Yep, those are the Trick or Treat dolls. And originally, I was supposed to make all those dolls, but we just couldn't come together on a price, I think, because there was a budget, and so the best way for them was to just order a bunch of mass produce Trick or Treat dolls than having me do them. So I was kind of bummed, but at the same time, I get, why they made that decision, because I think they had 30 of them there.
Yeah.
And those kind of work better in a sense for staging, and a lot of them were, I think, manipulated with CGI a little bit, so it didn't really matter. They were just kind of dummies there, lined up just to have, fill the back, and then you probably saw that they had a couple. I wouldn't say CGI, but they're sort of like inserts of the animatronic ones, because they didn't make like a bunch of animatronic ones. They just made, they had one, and then they made, they duplicated it in post production. And that looked, and that looked fine, worked. And then all the wigs were done. I provide the wigs for the show. I have a seamstress, her name's Sue, and she did sew them up for me. And so they look really nice. And they're good quality fur. They're the same type of fur they used for the original Child's Play, and I think every film. I don't think they've ever used a synthetic wig for Chucky. It's always this NFT hair. So I was able to get the perfect color because I had a screen used doll. So I sent NFT a swatch of that hair, and they were able to color match it. They're like the only company I think in the U.S. that will color match. I think it. Can't remember what fiber of the hair is. It's like a certain animal or whatever, but they're the only company in the U.S. that'll dye it. So we provided the wigs for that, and I'm sure there's some things from Cult when I provide a bunch of casting parts for Cult that they used for the show. But yeah, that's pretty much it. But I just made a lot of parts, which was cool. I made a lot of shoes, a lot of stuff like that. And then the face, the big thing for me was them using that face, because that you see the show and it looks so good with that face. So
How does it feel as a fan to be involved in the franchise in that way now?
great. I started just being like a regular fan that just made stuff, and it turned into my career, because I work with Trick or Treat on doing their toy manufacturing, their figure market there, and it does really well. There's a lot of people that buy Good Guy dolls. We had, because the factories do a certain amount of runs, like several thousands of dolls per run, and the last run we completely sold out. I think in 2 or 3 weeks. It was crazy. But with the COVID situation, the factories were being a little slower getting the product. So I think it was people were waiting for that order, that run, those pre-orders to come in, and then that's why they sold out so quick. And I don't think the next run will come till spring or summer, which is a bummer. I really wanted. I was hoping. I'm like, man, it's Christmas. People want to get a doll before Christmas, but unfortunately, they're sold out. But there's other companies like Nightmare Toys and stuff like that that have. I think they have some in stock where you can get them. Probably too late now. It's like December. What is it? December 17th. Yeah, so it's probably too late to get anything now. I've noticed with shipping and stuff. I've been shipping stuff out, and it's been taking like usually mail that takes 2 to 3 days. It's taking like 2 weeks.
Wow.
So I had someone that just ordered something yesterday, and I shipped it out, and I'm like, forget about. They're like, will I get it for Christmas? I'm like, forget about Christmas. I don't know. It's so like you never know when it's going to come, but it'll come. It's just the shipping companies are really, they got a lot of stuff going on with Christmas shipments. So, yeah.
Yeah. Right, Garrett. It was a pleasure to catch up with you again today, and
great
I
talk.
I hope to catch up with you again. Maybe when you have some more projects coming up.
Hey, I hope. I know there's a season 2 coming. I don't know what that necessarily means for me yet, but if something happens, I'll let you guys know.
Yeah, absolute pleasure, man. Thanks so much.
Yeah, talk to you later.
See you later, Garrett.